This is Ari Koretsky, and welcome to Jews You Should Know, introducing the broader community to interesting and inspiring Jewish men and women making a difference in our world. Some are already famous, some not yet so, but each is a Jew you should know. And we return this week with another episode focusing on the nexus between bridge builders and media, as again we did last week with our interview of Eli Pillay, the Mishpacha publisher and chairman of the Haredi Institute of Public Affairs, the person who stands at that intersection between attempting to bring people together and employing media to do so. This week, we interview another such individual, Nechemia Coopersmith, in a very different way, is also looking to traverse chasms in Jewish society, bring Jewish education to the masses, and he does so through the usage of new media, namely the very popular Aish.com website, which he founded and has maintained since its inception quite a few years ago. Aish.com sees over 1 million hits per month and is a comprehensive and exhaustive resource for a wide range of Jewish interests and needs. Nechemia has a compelling personal story and a fascinating narrative to share about the history and future of internet media in the Jewish world. Next week and beyond, we will in fact transition to more conventional media personalities, people who are doing wonderful work as columnists, advocates, and so forth on the Israeli scene and in the Jewish world broadly. But meanwhile, we turn our attention this week to Aish.com founder and editor Nechemia Coopersmith. We are here with Rabbi Nechemia Coopersmith in probably the most important and beautiful place on earth, and I say that without hyperbole, literally overlooking the Western Wall in the old city of Jerusalem, the office. They talk about corner offices in Manhattan or London or wherever else you want to be. I guarantee none of them can compete with this view that we have right here. Welcome, Rabbi Coopersmith.
Thanks very much. Great to be here.
And I want to get into how you came to be overlooking the wall, and as well as founding, managing, publishing, however we'll describe it, one of the most influential and widely distributed Jewish websites on the World Wide Web. But let's take it from the top and tell us a little bit about where you're from, what your background is.
Okay, I'm originally from Toronto, Canada, and I grew up in a typical conservative Jewish home, which meant, I went to Hebrew school, got thoroughly turned off to Judaism over there, went to the shul on high holidays, and what made me different was that already at the age of 15, 16, I suffered from angst. I was very much aware.
Existential angst,
yeah, which is a little peculiar for someone so young to be going through that. But I really, since I grew up in a pretty comfortable home, upper middle class, had everything I wanted, I realized right away that life is not about making money. This is not what is going to satisfy me.
I think they call that affluenza.
Yeah.
And Toronto is a very traditional community, right?
Yeah,
a little more traditional than the States.
Yeah. So, being Jewish was important to me, but I had no idea what it meant. It didn't even attach really any meaning to me. But I knew from the get-go that there had to be more to life than just making money.
Interesting.
And at that time, my older brother, Eric, he was one of the first people in Toronto who became religious. And back then, it wasn't like the burgeoning Baal Tshuva movement we have today, where everyone knows somebody who became religious. It was a shocking blow to the Jewish community. Like they couldn't believe that someone like my brother, who was like a jock and everyone knew him, would end up in a cult like Aish HaTorah. They thought he was brainwashed, and people just couldn't believe it. And I had enough respect for my brother to know that there's no way he was brainwashed. And if he was, my parents will go and bring him back, But so I suspended judgment and wanted to understand what's going on, what is he doing. And I remember very vividly then that Rabbi Noach Weinberg was coming to Toronto to give a class. And we all my friends, my brother friends, like it was like about 50 of us, like a whole mixture of different cliques, were going to hear this rabbi, Eric's rabbi, who's responsible for him, staying in Israel, become religious. We all want to meet. Who is this man?
What year was this?
Right? This was in 1980.
1980. Okay.
I think it was 1980.
And your brother had just been like traveling the world kind of thing?
He was traveling across Europe. He was going to play hockey.
Whole
and
backpacking.
he ended up he was in Jerusalem, and he ended up going to meet Ephraim Shore, who's right next to the hall. Yeah, who they had a mutual friend, and she was very upset that Ephraim was also in Israel studying the yeshiva. So my brother happened to come across Aish HaTorah, and he met Ephraim. He said, "Come on, quick, let's go, get your passport. I'll get you out of here."
I'll get you out of here. He's going to deprogram him.
What are you talking about? He said, you're in a cult. I'll get you out. So that's when my brother met Rabbi Noach and started taking classes, and he was blown away by the wisdom here. And he left. He went back to kibbutz up north, a very secular Shomer Hatzir kibbutz. And interestingly, he told Ephraim, he told Rabbi Noach, I'll come back when I finish kibbutz. I'll come back and check things out. And he was in kibbutz having a good time. He had a non-Jewish roommate, and he was debating, shouldn't I go back? And then Ephraim, it was Bein Zmanim. It was a holiday, and Ephraim was traveling around up north. And on the bus, he was driving by this kibbutz that my brother was on. And Ephraim, you have to realize, Ephraim barely knew my brother. He just met him once or twice. Right. And he was driving by. He said, "Hey, Eric Coopersmith is on this kibbutz." Ephraim decided to get off the bus and say, "Let me go look up and see what's happening," and try and convince him to come back to Aish and explore more learning. He could have easily, stayed on a bus, go on his merry way, and my trajectory in life, his trajectory in life would be completely different.
It's amazing how singular moments can be so life-defining in terms of altering that trajectory.
Exactly.
And everything goes a different direction.
And it was just because he cared about this Jew, he didn't really know, and decided, let me go check him out. And because Ephraim did that, eventually my brother did go back to Aish and decided to stay for 3 months to take the beginners program. And that's when it really hit the fan at my house. And my parents came to Israel and to see what he was doing. They were very concerned. Then Rabbi Noah came to Toronto, and that's when we went to go hear him. Yeah. And I went with my parents. And at that time, my parents didn't realize, but I was very open, very, very much like reading a lot of secular philosophy. I was searching for really meaning.
This is about 16 years old.
I was a 16-year-old.
Yeah.
Very eager to meet this rabbi, and I went to go hear him, and I was blown away. I thought Rabbi Noach was tremendous. I didn't disagree with anything he said. He presented Judaism in a way that was relevant, wise, something that I got to pursue. And I was very excited, and I was.
What about it hit you? Was it that it was logical? What it was that it related to you?
It was practical wisdom that was very relevant and relatable. I disagree with. He's just addressing. Back then I didn't realize it was a class I teach all the time, 5 levels of pleasure, and I thought it made a lot of sense. And I remember the drive home. Telling my parents that, you can't disagree with this rabbi. He just makes sense, and anyone who's open-minded would say, this is something I've got to pursue. That's what I said to them. Then got out of the car, and our street was the place where all these people, congregated, and we all wanted to, meet up together to discuss what happened. So I remember that this guy who he must have been 21, 22, and he was a person who, much older than me, who I really looked up to. He was the person who, he was cool, the
sage of the street.
Who was my hero, the guy who I really looked up to. He said, "Wow, that rabbi was such a jerk."
Interesting.
And everybody was going, "Yeah, what an idiot, can you believe it?" And I was on a dime, all the people who I really looked up to fell down, were knocked off the pedestal, because I saw right away they're not being honest. They're not being open-minded. They're just dismissing this because they're not willing to look and explore and challenge their own beliefs. And I just saw this is not you can't live your life this way. And at that point, I decided right then and there, I got to finish high school, and I got to take a year and go to Israel. And that summer, as a family, we decided to go to Israel and spend time, with my brother, tour the country. My first trip to Israel, and I went to Aish HaTorah. And back then, it was the era of backpackers.
Yeah.
And the Jewish quarter was buzzing with people and classes. There were 60 people in the classes, everyone arguing and discussing and philosophy.
Anytime, yeah.
And it was like enthralling for me. This is like, I felt like I woke up in a dream. This is exactly what I want. Like, we're talking about meaningful issues and people care about things, and I can see how you can grow, and people are looking for the truth here. And I met rabbis that really I thought had tremendous insight, and I became very close with one rabbi in particular, and I loved it, and decided, okay, I had to go back for my last year of high school,
right,
which was incredibly painful, because to me it was like leaving meaning and purpose to one more year of just like nonsense, really.
Did you have a grade 13 over there? Or?
It was grade 13.
Oh, no.
You know about grade 13?
A little bit. It's on American.
It's over. There's no more grade 13 in Toronto.
Oh, they got rid of it? They abolished that?
Yeah, they got rid of it. But it was my last year of grade 13. It was the equivalent of first year university. But interestingly, Aish Toronto opened up that fall.
Interesting.
And I got...
was that Palatnik?
No, it was Shalom Schwartz, Baruch
Okay.
Rabinowitz, Mitch Mandel, and Moshe Avrik was one of my first teachers. And I got a whole group of my friends to start a home group. And my best friend, Avram Goldhar, I met the night I got back from Israel. We were extremely close, like everything I learned. And we were so close, it was as if he went through the exact same experience that I did. And both of us, that night decided we're going to go to Israel after high school. Even though he never went to Israel. And we both started learning with a whole group of our friends. and we did. That's exactly what we did. I mean, I applied to university, but deferred for the year, and told my parents that I want to go to yeshiva for 1 year. And my mother, bless her memory, said, at first, over my dead body, because she knew exactly what happened to my brother. He also promised us for 1 year.
Were you the only two in the family?
No, we're a family of 5. I have another brother and 2 sisters.
Okay.
And but we're the only 2 who became religious.
Right.
But my whole family did change, really, because of my brother and I becoming religious. But eventually, my parents were convinced that it was, and supported me. And even though they didn't agree with to their great credit, even though they didn't agree with me, I remember very vividly having this conversation with my father, who's actually here visiting Israel right now.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah, he's 85 and amazingly made the trip.
All right, wow.
And I remember sitting down with him and saying, listen, we have a disagreement in values. Like for you, I understand university is the top priority, and I understand where you're coming from. But for me, taking a year out and exploring these questions, is there a God? Is Torah true? What I really want to ultimately do with my life, that is a higher priority for me than going to university. And what am I supposed to do? Do I live by my values or your values? He understood that, so he said, okay, go for the year. And
he was willing to support it.
Yeah, I paid tuition. I had no money whatsoever, but he completely supported me.
Which is a big thing to do, because he could say, yes, live by your values and pay for your values. Yeah.
And over the course of that year, it became very clear to me, I made a lot of decisions that year. One was, I was convinced that there's truth here. The most important thing I can do with my life is learn Torah, but not only just learn it. If this is changing my life, I saw right away I have a vehicle to change other people's lives. And really within the course of that first year, I decided this is really what I want to do with my life. Was learn, become a rabbi, and really help the Jewish people. I thought that was the most meaningful thing I could do with my life. And I remember I had to go ask Rabbi Scheinberg Zatzal a question. I promised my parents, I swore to them, I'm only going to come for 1 year and then go to university. Do I need to, keep that promise? And he made it very clear, you made that promise with no information, no knowledge whatsoever. With all the information you have now, you know that that's not something you want to do. So he said, halachically, according to Jewish law, I do not have to keep that promise. And I told my parents, I want to stay. And back then it was hard for them because they really had such expectations that for both my brother and me that we were going to go to university and get a degree. And it was after we became rabbis and we got married and we had families, they really saw that this was a wise choice, and not only support us, but they were totally proud of us and had tremendous nachas.
They saw you were really actualizing your abilities.
Yeah, and they became very big supporters. They were very involved with Aish HaTorah in Toronto. They were backers, and they were, they really turned around and saw the importance of what we were doing, and really believed in what we were doing. They weren't just like, they were very actively involved with Aish and what we were doing, and very proud of what we were accomplishing through Aish HaTorah.
It's amazing. I want to go back to that night on the street after that talk, because, as you said, these were the people who were very influential in your life, the people that you looked up to, the 21-year-old. And yet, rather than sort of buckle when he and they started deriding the rabbi and the talk, you sort of became emboldened and pushed back. That wouldn't necessarily be the traditional or natural reaction. What do you think within you rebelled against that? And
because the one, I know where it came from. I mean, I really thank the Almighty for it. Was that I was so driven for meaning and truth, and still am like that. I've always had that fervor, and drive. My parents always thought, I should be a lawyer because I'm so argumentative and tough, and I have positions and fight for it. That drive for meaning, like once it was so black and white, there's no way I can compromise on it, and that is really that drive. It did compel me to go to yeshiva, and it also did me well because even the decision back then to go into Jewish outreach, it was such an unpopular choice. To make that choice, it meant fighting everybody. We had to fight. Even back then, the religious world, you were to some extent a pariah. It was very unpopular.
Why?
Because everyone thought, you should just be in full-time learning. And that was just the social pressure. Just study, that's your priority. You have to grow yourself. Just worry about yourself. You just need to learn. Like the Kibbutz movement was just starting then. And it was really unheard of. And Rabbi Noach was like a real pioneer and iconoclast and going against the grain, and back then to stay at Aish HaTorah, you really had to be a fighter. It really was like that. You're fighting against the secular world you left back home, and then the religious world that you were diving into,
right? And
you really had to carve out your own path. It's very different than it was today.
Is there a downside to that?
Yeah, a huge downside to what it is like today.
No, but I mean, was there a downside to what it was like back then? In other words, that
I think
spirit of fighting and constantly being contrarian was only good. Okay,
it's only good, and I think it helped build us. And I think it's really, you see like so many people who built Aish HaTorah, which is now this worldwide movement, or all the people who became religious back then. Like, what was the special sauce? And part of it was. Definitely had a close relationship with Rabbi Noach Zatzal, but it's also that we all had to fight to get to where we are, where we are. So I think it made a big difference in shaping, who we are, and helped us become leaders to the extent that we are leaders.
Do you think at a certain point, after battling for so many years, that it was important to kind of be able to make peace with the broader community in a certain way, to kind of integrate in a certain way?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think people misunderstood Rav Noach, to some extent. Like, Rav Noach fought, but he also understood that the yeshiva world is the best community in the world, and that we have to be part of it. And we have to listen to the great rabbis. And even though he was someone who was going against the grain, he understood the limits. Maybe he didn't do the best job in the world in instilling that, but because it's hard. It's hard to keep that kind of balance back then when you do need to fight.
Of kind of,
But for many of us, I look at myself today. I'm definitely part of this world, and I appreciate that. If you're going to live in Israel, you have to be part of this world and part of this society. Whatever side you are, you can't be on the outside, because you're giving a very if you don't, you give a very confused message to your children.
Right.
So I'm a big believer, black is beautiful. And even though I realize there's flaws, there's mistakes, there's changes that have to be made. In every community there's changes that have to be made. You know, the message to give to your children is that I respect this world. This is the best world. I respect your school, your Rebbe, the Gedolim, and this is where we are. And even though within that context, then you could, in subtlety, show there are things that we need to change, but the change has to come from within the system, not outside of it. And that's very important. And I think also, you know, back then, you know, we were young, we were Bali Tshuva who really didn't know anything, and it takes a long time to grow up, become, you know, responsible and mature and see complexity, and that takes time. You know, I mean, I think it was David Gottlieb, you know, who said, you don't become like a stable achiever until 10 years you're into it, and there's some truth to that, because you're entering a whole new world, and it takes a good long time
to encounter disappointment and
everything, and you know, and people struggle with that now. You know, you never finish struggling it with the, you know, getting your kids into the school system and then shidduchim and all this world. You know, Baruch Hashem, you know, we've done, you know, we've done quite well living the system. But I have friends, you know, who've struggled more than I have, and but part of it, I think the key thing is deciding what community you want to belong to,
right? And
you can't sit on the fence. You've got to be, whatever community you are in, become part of that community.
Yeah. So what did you do once you became a rabbi? You're here in Israel, obviously studying for all those years.
So I studied here.
Did you stay here? Did you go abroad?
I studied here for 7 years. Got smicha, got married, and then decided that I did want to go abroad for a period of time, because I needed that experience of being out there on the front lines in outreach, and go to an Aish HaTorah branch and get that under my belt and broaden my horizons, really understand what's out there. And even though my wife, who grew up here, like since she was 7, or
American Israeli,
and her whole family was here, and not only here, but her parents were are still to this very day, are very much believe in the importance of living in Eretz Israel and the midst of yeshiva arts, and you know, my mother is the type of person who just never leaves Israel. So the thought of taking her daughter to Chutz La'aretz to live, even for just a short period of time, went very much against their values. And here I was again in a situation where fighting for what I believe.
But this time it's with somebody's daughter. That's a lot tougher.
But this time it's with my in-laws.
A lot tougher.
God, I love them, and they're incredible in-laws, and they're very supportive, believe in everything we're doing. But that decision was one that they were really dead set against.
Yeah.
And it was the same trait that I had, that I have to do what I believe in no matter what, that got us to
I imagine
leave.
your wife herself shared the value.
It was very hard, yes, and it was very difficult for my wife, and she knew that she had to stand by her husband, and my in-laws, I understood where they're coming from, and they met Rabbi Noach without me knowing to try and convince them, and Noach called me in and said, maybe you shouldn't go. And I remember that, and he said, maybe it's just not worth it. And I said, no way. This is the right thing to do, and I got to live my life, and we've got to do it. And the compromise was that I promised my wife, and we made a commitment that we're going to go for 2 years. And that was a commitment for 2 years, and we're coming back. And even that was unheard of back then.
Right.
Usually when people would go out, they stay.
Right.
And we thought, I said, I did want to live in Israel.
Well, your wife could say, look what happened last time you made the commitment for a year.
And so, well,
didn't turn out that way.
But I made a commitment, I made a promise, and we decided we bought an apartment before we left.
Here in Israel.
Here in Israel, we're putting our roots here, and I very much did want to live in Israel, and I did want to raise my children here. I did foresee my future as living in Eretz Israel. And we went to Toronto, and they understood that it was going to be, it was a time-bound commitment.
So you didn't go to open or run your own branch, which would have taken
Not my
more
own.
than 2 years to build.
I went back to Aish Toronto.
Be part of an existing structure.
And we we moved to Aish Thornhill, and it was
sure.
at a time when Thornhill was just starting.
Before the buy it?
No, the buy was there, but it was before the Aish Thornhill shul was there. There was no Aish building. We were renting out a gym and a school.
Wow.
And it was starting a whole brand new community from like the ground up, and we ended up staying for 2 years and 3 months, and believe me, they did everything they possibly could to try and get us to stay, and it would have been very
threw a lot of Canadian dollars at you.
They threw a lot, it would have been very nice to stay, and I was open to staying if my wife was open to staying, and there was no pressure, and she said no, and we went back.
Yeah.
And the amazing thing is that of the number of people that we worked with in Toronto, a number of them made Aliyah.
Interesting.
And moved and live in Ramat Beit Shemesh to this day.
Yeah.
And I think we have it's not because of us, but
They saw you do it.
We definitely have a chelik in that, and a chelik in my wife, who was very much believed in the importance of living in Israel. And you don't really see that, they don't really talk about much. It's like, they think that you're going, that's too far. But maybe it's not enough on people's radar that people are willing to make that ultimate step.
Right.
If they have role models and people who can explain why it's really worth the sacrifice. And it's a logical progression in their Jewish growth is to live in Israel, because this is our homeland. This is where it's all happening. This is where we're really shaping Jewish history. And to this day, we have people who 20, we were close to 24 years ago in Thornhill who live here. Thank God.
So if my math is correct, at this point, you're back in Israel and you're not even yet 30 years old, or close to it in that ballpark. Right?
Yeah.
So
30, 31, yeah.
So what did you come back to?
So I came back to not much. And
the wall was still here.
I was teaching in Aish. I was doing working with campus outreach. I was teaching training modern Orthodox kids to go back to campus, running Discovery program that was just starting up here. Then we started an R&D department and creating new classes, new programs. Wrote a book, and then the internet started, and I knew nothing about the internet. And I asked someone.
That was with Al Gore. Was that?
And I remember I asked someone, "Can you show me the internet?" And it was like it was like 1990.
4 or 5.
5, 7.
Yeah,
just
like really just starting. Yeah.
And then
first emails.
It was just like I fell off my chair when I saw like whoa, look at the opportunity here to reach the masses of Jews around the world, like.
Even then, you had a sense right away.
Right away, this is incredible. So I saw what Aish HaTorah was doing. They had a very nascent website that was really just mainly Divrei Torah on the online.
Right.
And I just saw like this is an enormous opportunity here. Like, and then I got word that there was someone in LA who was interested in starting a very significant Jewish website.
As
who was willing to fund it.
Okay.
Willing to fund it. And I went to Rabbi Noach, even though I knew nothing about the internet. And I said, I want to take responsibility to write the proposal and pitch this guy. And Rabbi Noach said, okay, go for it. Because that was Rabbi Noach's, that's what he lived and breathed. If you take responsibility, the doors, go through the door. It's yours. Because that's the key thing to succeeding is it's not what you know, it's if you take responsibility, you'll figure out what you need to know. And you'll get the right people to do it. So I took the task of working with the few people that Aish had in the internet, department. I worked with them. We had a number of massive brainstorming sessions. We created this entire plan, a 25-page document.
Wow.
It was extremely ambitious. I remember it, and then we flew to LA for one day.
Wow.
And I came home with $500,000.
Unbelievable. What were the...
My life completely changed my life, like overnight.
That's incredible. What were the rudimentary elements of this proposal? What did you envision this could be? Something more than just having really interesting articles that people could read?
Back then there was no, like the big website was Virtual Jerusalem. You know, that was like one big Jewish website. That was like the only big Jewish website back then. We envisioned doing just a total comprehensive website touching on every Jewish topic that Jews from all backgrounds would be interested in. Like that was what we were thinking, like from the Jewish user perspective, what would they want?
Right.
So we started putting together a whole like clear structure of a site that we're still using today, of spiritual growth and family and dating and Chagim and the Torah portion and Israel, Jewish travel, cooking. Let's create this entire online world of relevant, insightful content and wisdom dealing with all these topics.
Right.
And that really is the core of Aish.com to this day, which is really embodies the whole strategy of Rabbi Noach, that Torah has wisdom that speaks to every Jew. If we can just package it the right way and deliver the wisdom that addresses their issues today, whether it's being a parent, a husband, a wife, we light the menorah on Hanukkah. What is Hanukkah all about? What does it mean? How do I explain the meaning to my children? What is Shavuot? What's Rosh Hashanah? How do I make this meaningful, relevant to my life? People, they go to shul, how to make it come to life, right? Why should I care about Israel? Back then it was there was different wars going on, so we try and basically anything that was going on in the world, what does Judaism have to say about it? Contemporary issues and ethics. And we started putting together teams of writers and creating content. And build the site. It took 6 months to build the site. We built our own content management system.
Wow.
Looking back, maybe it wasn't sure that was the right move back then. But also there weren't the resources that you have today. So we had to build everything from scratch, and we hired a consultant. I remember her taking me to the side and saying, she said, "I'm just very concerned. Once you launch, where on earth are you going to get all this content from?"
Even if you wrote the original content.
Yeah, so great. You have a few weeks, you have a few months worth of content.
It's got to regenerate. Yeah.
There's this is a weekly beast that is devouring content. Where is it all going to come from?
Right.
And it wasn't like Aish told all these writers. We didn't.
Right.
And back then I just had the bitachon, the trust that I felt that it was so clear to me. The Almighty created this enormous tool that was changing the world. This is going to be the main vehicle to bring Torah to the world. He's going to make it happen. We've got to do our best effort. He's going to. I don't know where we're getting all this content, but we're going to get it.
Yeah.
And I had to have the bitachon that it's going to happen. And we had these ambitious goals where Noach thought we were crazy.
Really?
Back then, he didn't appreciate the power of the internet.
He was from a different generation.
Yeah, he thought, you're going to get 50,000 views a month. That would be incredible.
Right.
Wow. When we launched, Noach maybe didn't get it first, but he's the quickest learner. And he immediately saw, this thing is explosive. This is huge. And everything, every new tool, Rabbi Noach was right there, how do we leverage this? How do we maximize this? From articles, he said, okay, great, you got an article, but that's not enough. You've got to, I remember it was one of your questions, that you got to give them tools to use now and questions to think about the article. Take every article, make sure you're leveraging it and going as far as you possibly can. Then we started with videos. Okay, how do we get these videos out there? What kind of video, more other videos could we be creating? What is this thing, YouTube? What is Google? Anything new, he's so curious, and just all he cared about was what's going to work. If it works, use it, maximize it. So there was always this culture of innovation and newness, And we were, Bokshem right there at the beginning, and the site was a huge hit from the get-go.
Yeah, what was the initial response?
I remember the initial response. It was like, it made a lot of waves. The Forward, I remember, came out with an article like singing the praises of Aish.com.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't imagine that.
I didn't appreciate. I didn't even.
The Messiah was coming.
I didn't appreciate back then like the importance of that, but they basically gave us like like a 5-star. Like wow, the Jewish like this is the Jewish super site. Because it really was back then. It was like really revolutionary. Like there was no other site of its kind that's trying to do what we do. And even to this day, I think that Aish.com is unique because, we're different than the more firm websites, which are amazing, and there's so many today that give it so many shiurim. But I think that our site is unique in that we're discussing contemporary issues, current events, and giving just relevant wisdom that speaks to Jews from all backgrounds.
It's more accessible to the average person.
Yeah, and that is our we have not lost sight. Our primary target group are non-religious Jews. We have many religious Jews come to our site. We know that, and many, from kids come to it and love it, and it's great. But that is not who we're making the site for. Like, we will not post content that speaks only to the religious Jew, because that will turn off our main target group, which is the non-religious Jew. So it's a challenge to create, content that is giving over meaningful wisdom, but it's in using current contemporary, platform. So, like I'm just in the middle of any article about like the fact that Apple became the first company that reached $1 trillion on the stock market.
Yeah.
So how can we use that to give over a timely Jewish message? So that's what we're doing. We use books and videos and celebrities. Anything that people around the world are talking about. Let's talk about it as well.
How did the site actually unfold? How did you start generating that volume of content that you were so worried about?
We started. I reached out to a lot of different writers and built relationships with them.
And for pay, or these?
It's for pay. It is for pay. I mean, it's not a lot of pay.
I understand, right.
But it's definitely people who wanted to make an impact and who were talented writers. And I work with them. And Bokshem built a lot of relations with a lot of writers, like who I think really got there, even started Aish.com. Sarah Rigler was a,
sure.
Everyone knows now, she really started at Aish.com. And we became very close and worked with her, Yaakov Solomon, Sarah Shapiro, even Rebbe Zevegi Tversky. I remember calling her up and said, let's start a column. And writing was completely new for her back then. And so we nurtured a lot of different writers, and that's what I do. Like, I'm always looking for new talent, young voices and writers. And, Rabbi Blech is a tremendous, rabbi. He's got something to say about everything, Baruch Hashem. And, Kanena, you should, live well, and he's tremendous, and the more reliable writers that we can get, the better. But also, once the site got out there, it really became a platform for the Jewish world, of people to send in their articles, and we get tons and tons of submissions.
Right. And those are not for pay.
No, so many of them are for pay, some of them are not.
Right.
The vast majority of them, we don't accept.
Right.
That's the truth. But many of them.
In all fairness, I've been rejected before, Rabbi, and that's okay.
Really?
Even though I have a master's degree in writing, but
really? So let's talk about that. Okay.
I think the content wasn't geared in the exact right way that you wanted. But I've ghostwritten many articles that have gotten on your site for a friend of mine.
But we got many excellent articles that way. And new writers have surfaced that way. So really, it's a platform for just the Jewish world to people can share their stories and their ideas.
How has the site evolved over the years? Obviously, the internet has changed dramatically, and not just once, but dozens and dozens of times.
Yeah. So now videos become extremely important. And I wish we could do more of a video.
Yeah.
I mean, if we had the budget, I would love to have. My dream would be to have a full-time video, workshop where we have, writers and videographers, and we're churning out videos all the time. That would be my dream, of having more video content than even written content. but it's expensive, and we don't do that. But we, Boxing, we're doing more. We try and do as much as we can. It's a world of social media, which Boxing, we have.
How have you adapted to that?
We have 100,000 Facebook friends on our Facebook page, but the truth is that we're just scratching the surface.
Right.
And I think we just redesigned our site. If you
I
noticed,
saw that,
a
yes.
few months ago, we did a redesign. It was very much needed. We only did half the redesign of what we wanted to do. There's a whole second phase.
Because of cost?
Because of cost. There's a second phase that's been designed of using gamification tools.
Interesting.
Which we want to implement because we think that gamification basically is taking 8 different strategies that without users realizing and getting them to do certain things that you want them to do, that they naturally want to do. Like, people play games not because they're told to or they have to, because they want to.
Sure.
So every game is utilizing different kinds of strategy and techniques that get the user to stick with this game.
Right.
So we worked with a really phenomenal expert in gamification, an Asian fellow who is a religious Christian, who totally got what Aish.com was all about, really respected the goals of Aish.com, and loves the Jewish people, and really wanted to help us. And he became like part of the team.
That's
like
cool.
Overnight. Like, he just got us. It was really fascinating. And he really helped us define our goals and where is that we want to move our users. It's a very important process. Like, there really is a process. We get people just to come to the site, but we want them to sign up our email. We want them to share our content. We want them to chat with the rabbi, which is a new thing that we started to do,
Right.
which was tremendously successful. We want them to sign up on our Aish Academy to take courses.
Right.
We want them to come on a mission to Israel, come to our Israel program. We want them to hook up with a phone chavrusa, a study partner online, because that can change their life. We want them to get involved with the local
rabbi.
Yeah, their local rabbi, because we realize we can only take them so far, and our goal is to really hand them off to a live local person.
Yeah.
That can make them a great impact. So, how do we design the site to ensure that wherever they're at, they are taking their next step in their Jewish journey? That's basically what we're trying to do. So we have this whole vision of different incentives, and it adds an exciting layer of encouraging people
Just
to
an
do
expensive
new
proposition.
things. So it's programming, it's designing. We need to raise another $100,000 in order to make it happen. And we want to make it happen. It's an experiment. I'm not sure it's going to work, but if it does work, the impact that the site can make on changing people and encouraging the Jewish growth really could be huge. So that's why we wanted to do it. We didn't want to just do a facelift. We wanted to do something that we thought really could make a greater impact.
Right.
So we'll see. With social media, we're now at the point where we think the site's where it's at, where we can really invest in social media. And we're looking to make certain hires, and we're going to start investing in that. And I'm very excited about that, because I think it's I'm going to learn it all up, and
right.
And it's going to require creating new content. Like,
sure.
It's like
optimized for those platforms.
It's great what we've been doing so far, but we're scratching the surface. And I think that the vision that we have is taking our Facebook page and really creating like an Aish.com community,
right.
where I'm open to be really more involved in dialoguing with people on
right.
our Facebook page, discussing the content and creating new content that's really geared for Facebook and Instagram.
Right. How closely do you monitor the statistics and the listeners or the viewers? How many viewers are you getting on an average month? And
we get about 1 million visits a month on the English sites.
Those are unique visits, or?
Those are unique visits, not visitors.
Not visitors.
Unique visitors. We get visitors. It varies from 650,000 to 800,000 unique visitors. About half that is through search engine traffic.
Interesting.
But it recently took a hit. I think Google recently changed their algorithms.
Changed the algorithms. Always
and
do
we
that.
it definitely affected all sites and affected us as well.
Wow.
We also have Hebrew and Spanish websites.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And between all the sites, we have about 360,000 unique email subscribers.
Interesting.
So
They're getting
it's
like a digest on a
They
weekly
get like
basis.
basically like for the English site, we send out 3 emails a week of our new content. And then we also have specific email lists like spirituality, Israel, dating.
People who selected those.
Yeah, people want specifically those, or Torah, the Parsha.
Right.
And so I'm always looking at stats on the content and seeing what content
what does well
is hitting and what's not.
Sure.
And and then the overall traffic. There's more that we could be doing and drilling down with Google Analytics, which we occasionally do. And
how has the site been funded since that initial $500,000 investment?
Yeah, it's a good question.
Advertising or you would
so back then, advertising. That donor, Yuri Pickover in LA, who God bless him, was really the father of Aish.com. He was a main supporter for a number of years.
Sure.
Right, and then we have a small group of significant donors, and then we have like a wide base of just small donors who come to the site, give $18, $36,
sure.
$10 a month. Those donors, if every reader would just give $5, $1 a month, it would more than cover us.
Right.
I wish they would.
Well, why isn't advertising? Because it's so much.
And then advertising was covering at one point, like about 30% of our budget was through advertising.
Yeah.
But today, I think people have realized that internet advertising is not so effective.
Interesting.
Which it isn't. So it's been much harder to get advertisers on the site, and we financially we are struggling. There's no question about it. We struggle to make ends meet and cover our budget, and not only struggling just to cover our budget, but there's so much more that we would be doing if we had the budget.
Right.
So we need to be working on.
I'm surprised by that because
in
podcasting, podcasting is actually known to have very successful advertising. And advertisers appreciate advertising on podcasts because it's a very niche down audience. It's kind of a very high rate of return. So I'm surprised that certain niche websites wouldn't deliver a similar kind of return.
I mean, we have we work with a Jewish media group that gets us Jewish advertisers, but it's hard. It's hard. I mean, money. Fundraising is definitely the biggest challenge that we're facing.
How big is the team right now that works on the site?
You'd be surprised how small it is.
Yeah.
It's extremely small. Full-time people who work at Aish.com is about 5 people.
Wow.
We have a few part-time people, and that's it.
And you have the writers?
The vast majority of our writers are freelance writers. But if for editing, I'm the sole editor.
You do the editing of all the articles?
I edit every single piece that goes up on Aish.com.
Oh my goodness.
I'm responsible to get all the content for Aish.com. Yeah, and we have my executive director, Jack Hulla, and we have 2 programmers, and it's in-house designer. Even but now we're looking to hire a part-time graphics person and a social media director. But it's extremely lean and mean.
Wow.
People are shocked when they hear that because we are producing so much content, and we really do have a huge site, but it's a very small operation.
Unbelievable. What's the next chapter for Aish.com?
The next chapter is tackling social media and really growing on that. We have a program called Aish Academy that we just recently redesigned, and we want to roll out a whole slew of short courses, primarily video based, for people who really want to take the next step in their Jewish learning. With top of the line Jewish speakers. That's a key goal. We have a program called Chat with the Rabbi, which extremely successful, where there was Tzvi Broker, we were spending 4 hours a day just chatting with people coming on Aish.com, and it's just direct one-on-one frontline outreach, answering the direct questions, getting them to subscribe, getting them hooked up to their local, rabbi or rebbe in their city. Our dream is to have that 24 hours a day. It's just a question of money. We know it works. It's just a question of funding. And then videos it's a key priority. I really do want to hire somebody full-time and build a whole video operation and have a whole creative team that are creating new things. Because if we want to reach young people, they want short videos that cut to the chase and that are, we've had a lot of success with viral videos. I'm sure you've seen some of our music videos with the dancing. And I wrote a lot of those.
You produce those in-house? Or
it's all produced in-house, and people are shocked to find out, Many of them I wrote the lyrics to the music, and then we work with Shudis and Micah Smith, and working with one musician who does the music, and they were huge hits. Some got like millions of views.
Yeah.
And it's a whole team of people, just like in-house team that make it work.
Yeah.
It's much harder to do that today, because back then it was new, it was innovative, novel. You gotta see this, so everyone was sharing it. But today, these music videos and music parodies, been there, done that. Yeah. Everyone does them.
It's a saturated market.
Yeah. So we actually stopped doing it because they're not cheap. They're expensive to do well. They take a lot of work. And so if it's much harder to make it a bullseye to really have them go viral.
Yeah.
So we have to, so you need to come up with new things.
Right. Well, we look forward to seeing those new things emerge. I'm struck as we close by the contrast or the juxtaposition of sitting by the oldest relic and the spot in the Jewish world, the Western Wall, which retained the temple right behind it that we look forward to rebuilding, and yet trying to constantly innovate and bring Judaism to the new generation. If that's not most apt metaphor for what Judaism is all about, that fusion of ancient and modern, then I don't know what is a better description. So Nechemia Coopersmith, thank you very much for your service in that arena, trying to bring that ancient wisdom into the modern world. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Take care.
This has been Ari Koretsky on Jews You Should Know. Please visit us at JewsYouShouldKnow.com and subscribe at iTunes, Stitcher, or wherever you consume podcasts. Find us on social media at Jews You Should Know. If you'd like to become a supporter of this podcast, we would greatly appreciate that, and you can do so by visiting patreon.com. That's patreon.com/Jews You Should Know. Finally, if you have enjoyed this podcast, please leave us a review so that we can continue to grow and introduce many more people to Jews You Should Know.